Welcome to another edition of Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. In this video, I put a playlist together of some of the interviews I've done with people from the film and television industry. So if that's an industry you want to get into, this one's for you. Enjoy.
I can't believe you have to read this bit.
Well, you know, I can't remember all of it. Gethin does this for a living, right? So this is hugely intimidating for me.
I can't wait.
He is going to take the mickey out of me the entire way through. But let me persevere.
Okay.
There's probably some people watching who are thinking about what comes next.
Yeah.
After school, after university, perhaps pivoting in their career. If they're thinking about a life in media and entertainment, what advice would you give?
It's tough now, isn't it? I think, like I was saying before, the landscape is changing so much. I think the downside is there's so much choice, but it's also the good parts because, like we're doing here, you can set up a camera, you can talk, and you can get out there. Joe Biden, who you set me up with as well, look what he's done. You know, he's created his own following. Joe Sugg was on Strictly Come Dancing. Didn't really know who he was in the mainstream, but my goodness, his world of following is incredible. Yeah. Like Saffron this year on Strictly Come Dancing as well, like social media star, that's how we announce her. So I think you can make your own world, to be honest, and I think if you're passionate about it and you really want to do it, then you need a bit of luck along the way, but there's nothing wrong with hard work and getting it out there rather than saying you're going to do it. If you're passionate about something and you want to be out there and you want to be a voice, and get it out on your phone and then beg everyone you know to sort of follow you and put it out there, you know?
Well, that's fantastic advice.
I don't know, but that's how it feels right now.
Well, I don't think anyone knows, but I think it's brilliant advice to sort of follow your passion and just get on with it and work and persevere. I'm really glad that we had a chance to speak like this because I know you personally.
Yeah, we do.
Many people will know you from the TV.
We're on a WhatsApp group called The Hurt Locker.
The Hurt Locker.
So the three of us go training, and I love it purely, and I know I've cut across you here, but you know, you got someone sort of, the TV presenter, Ollie, who's one of the best graphic designers in film, a draftsman rather, in the UK, yourself, and the breadth of knowledge and people and chat that you have. We all get together on a Saturday after training. I love it because the conversation goes everywhere, doesn't it?
Kind of a little random.
Hence why you've sort of developed this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I'm really, I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk about what sits behind, you know, what people see on the TV screen, because I can say from the heart that you're a genuinely nice guy, authentic, incredibly intelligent, very clever. Talking about this pen, I was really interested.
I didn't do a minute.
It was much better than mine.
I didn't do a minute. I did like 30 seconds and bottled it. So.
Well, no, it was much better than mine. You fell asleep during mine. So listen, Gethin Jones, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
I'm going to ask you first of all how you developed this interest in creative arts. Where did that come from? What age were you, and how did it come about?
Yes. So I think for me, if I can recall, I think the first moment that I felt as though I wanted to be a part of the creative arts was when I was 11 years old. My mum tells me a story of me performing on my school play, and I'm basically reciting everyone's lines. So I'm not just doing my own script. I'm also saying everyone else's lines that, you know, they might be forgetting a few lines. And
just mouthing them?
Yeah. I was actually saying these out loud, so I think the audience were probably getting quite annoyed at me. But I mean, I can't remember, but I guess I was so passionate that I was able to learn just not my own, but also theirs. And I played Mowgli in Jungle Book. Had such a great time, and didn't really think too much of acting at that point. I actually was into sport. I loved playing football, and I was a kid who just used to run around and stuff. So it wasn't until I was probably about 14 years old that I knew I wanted to be an actor. And it was my dad. He always used to say to me, son, you know, what do you want to be? And he used to always hit me with that question. I wouldn't be able to answer it, but I understand so much now why he would ask me that question at such a young age, is because if I could if I knew what I wanted to be at 14, then I could at least have the building blocks towards, you know, getting into
Start
that career,
preparing for it, yeah.
basically. And that's when the Brit School idea came in. I remembered sort of the Brit School being so different to a school that I previously was at, but
Different how?
different because you can't call your teacher by a first name basis, you know, and also down to what you wear and clothing. Like, I just didn't feel as though this school as a culture needed to sort of, you didn't need to fit in. You
Right.
being yourself was fitting in.
Came as your whole self.
Completely.
Yeah.
So my first 2-3 months I spent literally going through different outfits and different looks because it was the first time I felt just liberated to be myself. So I was trying to, you know, work out who I was. And
Wow. Well, watch this space. There's probably some people watching or listening that are thinking about getting into production or acting or the creative arts or even founding a business. You're actually all of those rolled into one. What advice would you have for them?
It's a very good question. I probably would say a few things. I would say perseverance has been probably my biggest thing. I think along the journey, there's been a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of ups and downs, and so the fact that we didn't quit allowed us to learn the reason for why we're going through that process and get to the other side. And because of that, you know, there were great things on the other side that we couldn't see at the time. But you know, if you hold out and don't quit, you can get there. I'll say the people that you work with. I can't sit here today and say that I did it by myself. Absolutely not. I've got an amazing team, and I think, you know, we're all products of our environment. So I feel like if we are able to find our tribe of people who believe in the vision, you know, I'm very thankful for a lot of people because we worked for a lot of years for nothing, and finally, you know, we have something to give back. And I think lastly, when it comes to just creating content, I think it's always about authenticity.
Yeah.
I think it's always about trusting your gut instinct, and you know, who we are as people is our own USP. And so there's things that I can do that I know that no one else can do, and vice versa. There's things I can't do that other people can do, and there's probably stories that I can't tell that other people can tell. So I think if you're probably watching this now and you're wanting to get into content creating, whether it's, you know, YouTube or TV or film, it's just about, I think, starting as well, executing.
Tell me how the modelling thing came about.
Okay, so I was scouted in your local shopping centre, which is Shepherd's Bush, Westfields, and at that time I was actually working part-time managing a children's shop. And a woman called Coralie, she's got.
Were you
her
working
own...
in the Westfield?
Yeah, it was
okay,
a shop called Trotters. It's
okay,
a children's shop. You know Trotters,
yeah.
So I was there, and a woman called Coralie, so she has her own casting agency, just said, "Hey, can I take a picture of you? You look really cool." And I was like, "Okay, what for?"
That's a bit weird.
Yeah, Coralie's so cool. It's so weird because after that we have so many mutual friends that, you know, we just discovered recently, and. Yeah, so she took a picture of me for her roster, and then a few weeks later she gives me a call and says, "Hey, H&M want to use you for a campaign." And it's funny because my background really is in film, so when she said casting agent, initially I didn't ask that many questions at the time, so I just assumed it was like film casting for extras and stuff like that. And when she said H&M, I was almost like disappointed. I was like, "Oh, it's fashion." I thought I was going to be in a movie, okay. And then I went to do it anyway. I thought nothing of it. I genuinely thought I'm going to be in this video for a couple seconds. No one's going to recognize me or care. But then they also took editorial shots of me. And I think it was that went more viral than anything, because it was the first time you've ever seen like a mainstream fashion logo on a picture with a woman in a hijab.
In closing, any tips or advice you'd leave us with, based on your journey?
I would say stop chasing, start building. So, yeah, a lot of us, I feel, are trying to, you know, it's almost back to front. Like, we're trying to chase something for them to build it for us, when we have tools and resources, especially living, you know, in the West, to do a lot of things ourselves and collaborate more. I'd say network. A lot of the things that I've been able to achieve is just through people I know and talking about what I want to do. So just having a very clear idea of what it is you want to do and being able to relate that to people, so that you can have support in making it happen.
It's up to us and just do it. People like you, Neil, are demonstrating how you can pivot your art to a different canvas. And I think that's happening in music. It's happening. The National Theatre's been on YouTube. Different musical performers are performing online in some shape or form. Travis Scott did a gig in the Fortnite gaming environment. So I think if you seize the opportunity, there can be new possibilities to use a new canvas with that art in a different way that you couldn't do live as well. So great call to action, though. I think
yeah, because also you can play to an audience anywhere in the world.
Exactly.
So in terms of the offer, the yes and there's possibilities. I can do a gig for people in anywhere without having to go there. But what I'm sensing from all the list you gave me is that there's an appetite. People want music, theatre, comedy, art, and we need to think about how to deliver it. For example, I read in the first 3 months, as you say, the National Theatre, it had something like 11 years worth of full houses in 3 months of YouTube shows. So how do we nurture that audience? How do we satisfy that audience? Most of whom I expect couldn't come to London. Many of whom may not be able to afford regular prices. So can we kind of have a more blended approach? For example, the Comedy Store, we're thinking, if we can't open to a full house of 400, could we have 50 people, 100 people, and then live stream?
Well, I tell you, one of my favourite scenes from the Austin Powers movies was the one that you were in, actually, and it's one of the most famous scenes of all of the Austin Powers movies. Can you talk about that from the first one?
Thank you. So the thing was, Mike, after Wayne's World 2, I think he was still in Saturday Night Live, not sure what to do next. And he sent me this script, and Austin Powers, and I thought, this is hilarious. He said, is it really? I'm not sure. And then somebody at New Line Cinema said, yeah, let's do it. And it was tricky because it was a character, unlike Wayne, that people didn't know. So they tried it out in a few theaters in LA, and he rang me and said, I really want you to play this character. It's tricky because the way Hollywood movies are sold, they have to get a certain number of famous people. And luckily, he got a lot of famous people to do other parts. Elizabeth Hurley, Rob Lowe, Michael York. So it turns out he got enough famous people that he could have some schmuck from England play that character. And he just knew I could nail it because I just had to be English, sort of supercilious, keep a straight face and say, Swedish-made penis enlarger. And we'd have to go to Liz. No, this sort of thing ain't my bag, baby. And so Austin Powers is very roughly one of the characters based on my best friend. I'll say no more, but my friend is a lawyer. So like most of Mike's characters, he's taken somebody else real, and mixed it up with his own sort of input. Anyway, so he said, come and do this. And it was a very low budget movie because nobody knew about Austin Powers. So he said, stay at my house. I'll get somebody to pick you up from the airport. We'll get you home, stay at my house, and it'll take a day basically. And so by 4 p.m. on my day, I was on with Liz Hurley and Mike Myers and people around, and we had to hurry up because we only had this place for one day. And luckily I got it, but the director, called Jay Roach, really kind, lovely man, helped me feel comfortable because it's hard to be a day player in those circumstances. And it was fine. And people remember the scene, the Swedish-made penis enlarger scene. However, by the time it came to Austin Powers 3, it's been a great success. So it's gold member, and Mike says, I got another part for you. I want you to play a doctor. Come out, and we'll put you up in a lovely hotel. Bring your wife. It's going to be great. It'll take a couple of days, and of course, because movies are like this, it took about 2 weeks because it was a complicated scene. I played a doctor who says, "Oi, stop that," because he's on the shoulders of Mini-Me trying to get away, and I'm the doctor saying, "You need a medical," and so Mini-Me takes some apple juice and spurts it out as if he's giving us a urine sample. That's the crotch. So that's gold number 3, gold member. And then I pull a gun on him, and Mini-Me drops out like there's an alien being given birth to. But it's one of those things really difficult because Mike's on the Kirby wire, which is wires that keep you on attached to the ceiling, on Vern. Sadly departed Vern. So he actually couldn't stand on Vern, but he had to make it look as if he were. So that takes a lot of time to do. So I'm there for 2 weeks hanging out in LA. So quite a different experience. And as you'll see with Mike, Jay was a very good director for Mike, was that they'd sort of shoot the scene, get it right, and then say to Mike, just play, just have a go, do some funny stuff. And so he would, certainly with Dr. Evil and the other character, sort of play, you know, once the scene's finished, play some more stuff. And it was that which sometimes gave extra life and fun to the scene when Mike would be, you know, off script, as it were.
Well, you know, honestly, Chris, it feels like I'm talking to an enthusiastic, energetic 16-year-old still, totally driven by your curiosity and innovation and devouring these new technologies and using them in different ways. There may be people watching here who are thinking about a career in the movies, or taking their next step. The people who were, you know, in your place back when you were serving at the petrol station. What advice would you have for them?
I think the advice I would have is that, you know, that you need to not necessarily start off and say, I'm going to be a director or I'm going to be a producer. I think it's important to realize that there are lots of different parts, different facets of movie making, and enjoying those and being a part of those and enjoying each step on the way doesn't stop you from becoming a director. I mean, I've actually directed and written films myself because I have this great interest in films as a whole, and I've probably described myself as a filmmaker specializing in sound rather than a sound mixer specializing in film. And I would say to them, look at all these different aspects of what might interest you. Editing, for instance. Editing is such a great place to learn about filmmaking, and some of our best directors have come, people like David Lean, have come from being editors. And so I think it's good to look at different steps along the way.
It's not as bad as people try. I know Nigeria has a nasty reputation, but what do you think?
It's fantastic. There's lots of energy. It's bustling. It's different.
There's a lot of business happening here. It's beautiful. I mean, like any other developing country, you know, we have our challenges and everything. But they are amazing people. Nigerians are the most successful black people in the world, period. And there's a reason for that. It's because people are very intelligent. And so when you don't have the right channel sometimes, of course, you'll go the bad way. So we have a lot of people who have channeled their intelligence and whatever the wrong way. But it doesn't remove from the fact that we're very, very intelligent people. Yeah. So just find the right people and do business with them. If I must save myself, I'm one of those right people.
So
find me.
I would confirm that. Surround yourself with great people, and do your homework.
Do your homework.
And do great work.
I thought you were going to say this week an inspiring person was not available. But here's Ash Atalla.
So tell me about how you met Ricky and how did The Office come about?
Yeah, I mean, there is no, once you get into the world of TV and comedy or any kind of thing, there is no real career path. Like, it's the opposite of an accountant who has to, or, you know, my family are all doctors who, you know, exam, 4 years training, another exam, move up the ladder. You can move quickly or not move at all in lots of creative industries. And quite early on, I met Stephen Merchant, who was sort of a trainee with me in that comedy department in my early jobs.
He was a writer as well.
He was a writer, and he was more interested in writing. I was more interested in producing. And he had a friend called Ricky Gervais, who was working at a radio station called XFM in those days. And towards the end of Stephen's sort of traineeship, the BBC said to him, well, to finish off, you get X amount of money. It's not very much money. Make a 10-minute film. Yeah. Can be about anything you want. And he made it of his friend Ricky Gervais, who was beginning a character who was then called Sleazy Boss.
Right.
So sign of different times. And really it was quite a one-note, very sort of, it was that kind of classic lower middle management thing that David Brent became.
Yeah.
But it was quite narrow in its focus, and it was much more, you know, him sort of slightly. There's a scene in the beginning of The Office where he's sort of interviewing a lady and he's sort of being a little bit lascivious, and it was a bit more of that. And from then, I saw that and just fell in love with it. And I'd worked in a few offices in my time, but I had a very I've always had a very acute sense and kind of a love of the mundane, of the mundanity of life, of like, you know, we all do these certain things, these patterns that people who, you know, I made a show about people in supermarkets. You know, I like the mundane, I like the everyday, and the melancholy really of, I guess, what I've just been saying, people going to work every Monday morning and it not being what they love, and then making a product that they don't care about, and then having a boss who they would not wish to spend time with.
Right.
And living for the weekends, and that's what The Office became.
So there's probably some people watching who are thinking about getting into TV or film, or maybe some people wanting to pivot in that direction as phase 2 or 3 or subsequent phases. What advice would you give them, Ash?
You know, it's you kind of need to be under somebody's wing. You know, there's just a truth to this. The industry is trying to change a lot, but it's really about personal contacts, and you have to find those personal contacts. You've got a lot of people to shoot at and to aim at. You know, there are any number of production companies like mine. There are any number of producers, film companies. You know, there's a lot of people trying to get into it. The most common way to this day remains work experience, remains.
Just try and get a foot in the door.
Just trying to get a foot in the door.
Well, I hope you got as much out of that as I did sitting with these wonderful people. In your endeavours, wherever they may take you in film and television, I wish you the best, and thanks for joining me.